friends. Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts.
You know, it's that message that you hear all the time growing up where they're like, God's plan is like bigger and better than anything you can imagine. But it's so true, but it's so hard to apply that, I think, for young dancers. Yeah. And it's hard to, I have to remind myself now all the time that like, I can't control everything, and I can't, no matter how good I want to be or how successful I think I need to be in my field, I have to trust that like God is in control, and I have to trust that, he has a path laid out, and that if I stay in tuned and if I slow down and I listen, that hopefully I will see those doors that he's opening for me.
Hey friends, happy Tuesday, or whatever day you happen to be listening. I'm so excited to bring you conversations with some incredible artists in the next couple of months, including musicians, filmmakers, writers, and dancers. I would love to have your voice on the podcast as well. I'm putting together a special Thanksgiving week episode sharing your answers to the question, why are you thankful for the arts? Check out creativeimpactpodcast.com/thankful to learn more and submit your response. You can submit a response either via voice recording using SpeakPipe or through email. Again, you can check out more at creativeimpactpodcast.com/thankful. Before we get into today's conversation, I want to take a moment and introduce you to The Root Collective. The Root Collective is a company that makes beautiful shoes and bags with a purpose. After working for a Fortune 500 company, the founder of the Root Collective, Bethany Tran, decided she wanted to make a difference by helping to create jobs for artisans in Guatemala. I have a pair of flats from the Root Collective, and they are one of my favorite pairs of shoes. They're great quality, and they work super well with so many different outfits. The best part is that every single purchase creates jobs for artisans who need them. You should also definitely check out their boots because they're perfect for fall and winter. It's beautiful that we can make a difference in the world with something that seems so small, like where we shop. To learn more about the story behind the Root Collective and to check out their products, go to creativeimpactpodcast.com/RC, which stands for Root Collective. I'm excited to introduce you to my friend Gabriel Speiller for episode 17. Gabriel is a native New Yorker raised in Queens and is married to his lovely wife Dara, who dances with Texas Ballet Theater. He received a BFA in dance from Belhaven University, which is where I met him, and currently dances with Bruce Wood Dance in Dallas, Texas. He's also danced with companies like Paul Taylor II, Deum Dance Company, and many more project companies. In our conversation, we talk about Gabriel's journey from discovering dance in high school to the God story of how he ended up majoring in dance and eventually dancing professionally in his current role. We also chat about Gabriel's experiences teaching and choreographing throughout the United States. Gabriel shares about learning to slow down and listen to God. We also explore what it looks like to allow God to influence our creative work. Enjoy my conversation with Gabriel Speiller. Today I am here with Gabe. Well, I call him Gabe, but Gabriel Speiller, and so excited to have you with me today. How are you, Gabe?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me so much. Just really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Definitely. It's super fun to catch up. And I know it's been kind of a crazy life lately. So it's fun to connect with someone via video chat as well. So so y'all staying safe there?
We are. We're locked down here in Fort Worth right now. Obviously, numbers have been bad in Texas. So we're just trying to stay safe.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad y'all are doing well. And just so our listeners know, Gabe and I, we go way back to college, essentially. And got to know each other at Belhaven, dancing together. And I guess since then, just seeing each other probably at like Deum intensives, things like that. Yeah. Which is pretty cool. Yeah. So it's been really fun kind of seeing your journey. And then you are married to Dara, who is also at Belhaven.
Yes.
So that's super fun. So maybe we'll get to hear more about y'all's story too. But
definitely.
Yeah. So do you want to share just a little bit about yourself and kind of what you're up to right now?
Sure. Yeah. So right now I'm living in Fort Worth and I'm dancing with Bruce Wood Dance Company, located in Dallas. Been there for a little over 4 years now. And I'm married to Dara, who is dancing with Texas Ballet Theater here in Fort Worth. And she's been there for 6 years. And that's currently where I'm at. And right now during COVID, trying to figure out teaching and choreographing and
Right.
how to stay busy during these crazy times. So
For sure. Definitely. So why don't we go back now to how you got into dance in the first place? So kind of where you
sure.
grew up and a little bit about your family and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Queens, New York, and I'm one of 5 siblings. I didn't grow up dancing. Actually, I grew up playing a ton of sports. Actually,
Oh, cool.
mostly played hockey growing up. Played hockey till I was 18. And my family also, I guess, we didn't really have anyone directly involved with the arts, but everyone appreciated it. Like my dad was a
Mm-hmm.
huge Frank Sinatra and Gene Kelly and all those old classic guys.
Yes.
And so he introduced me to all of that. And I loved watching all the Gene Kelly films. And I remember when I went to high school, I went to Frank Sinatra, to Performing Arts High School
Oh,
in
really? That's
Queens.
cool.
Yeah. And originally when I went there, I just was like, well, I guess it would be more fun, I don't know. Well, I didn't even know what I was going to do there, honestly, but more fun doing that than doing an arts class than math or whatever.
Right. Yeah. It does sound more fun in
Yeah.
general.
So while I was there, because I was a guy, I remember they put me in Guys and Dolls and they were like, we just need you to pretend to roll some dice in the corner. And I was like, this is weird, but okay. And I still enjoyed it.
Uh-huh.
And then I guess let's see. So yeah, I guess rewinding a little bit. So I grew up with 5 siblings, and some of my siblings were really into acting. And one of my brothers, he still is he's currently a writer. And so he writes
Wow, cool.
comedy and he's done TV work and commercial work and stuff like that. And growing up in New York City, it's just a very art friendly city. It's pretty much
Mm-hmm.
you can't help but be surrounded by it growing up. So I kind of had always been drawn to the arts, even though I wasn't really directly involved with it.
Right.
And so then I went to Frank Sinatra and kind of started getting a taste for the arts in general. And I was like, wow, this is great. And I was like, I would love to be more involved. But I also had really rough high school. And I went to 5 different schools before high school because I kept getting either politely asked to leave or just sent away. And so it kind of had I was a little bit of a troublemaker, to say the least. And after high school, when high school was coming to an end, I was like, well, I didn't do well in school. I was never a good student. I skipped school a lot. And so I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get into college. And then going into my senior year, there was a program called Young Dance Makers Company in New York. And it's an improv summer intensive for urban New York City youth. And it's totally free.
Wow.
It's they pay for it and they select students from throughout the 5 boroughs. And during that intensive, they kind of introduce you to improvisation, and they introduce you to dance, and you get to do rep from a choreographer in New York. And that year we were doing rep from Mark Morris's dance company.
Oh, wow.
And so one of his company dancers came and set that. And that was kind of my introduction. I was like, wow, I really love this. This is so fun. And because I was already very athletic, I was I loved running and jumping and doing all that kind of stuff.
Right. So you probably took pretty quickly to the athleticism
To the
and
athletic
dance
part of it.
right.
Yeah.
And that sounds like so much fun. I want to go to that.
Yeah.
Seems
no,
like
it
a really
was
cool intensive.
Yeah, it was so fun. And then I had some friends that were like, hey, you should come to Broadway Dance Center and take a class. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but that sounds cool.
Cool. Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, I went there, loved that. And then that kind of led me to college, where they were like, they're always looking for men in dance departments because they don't have a lot of them. So you should just look into some. And I had also just become a Christian my senior year of high school as well. Okay. So I literally just Googled Christian dance colleges.
Yeah.
So I was already interested in I was really new into my faith, and I knew that had transformed my life, and I wanted to go deeper there. And then I just had been introduced to dance. So I was like, how can I connect these two? So the two that came up when I Googled was Belhaven University and Palm Beach Atlantic University. And I saw that Belhaven was in Jackson, Mississippi. And being from New York, I was like, yeah, no way, not going to go there. So I didn't even look at it. I just kind of
That's so funny. That's off the table.
Yeah, which is funny because that's where I ended up graduating from.
Right.
But at first, I went to Palm Beach Atlantic University.
Gotcha.
And I showed up, didn't know what to do. They were like, we need a picture of you in first arabesque. So I Google like first arabesque and look up images and try to mimic that pose.
That is so great.
And yeah, I went there for 2 years and had a great experience. It was really good. But then in 2008, with the financial crisis, both of my parents lost their jobs. And so I was like, I cannot, it's a pretty expensive school. So I was like, I can't afford to go to school here anymore. So I was like, I'll just drop out and I don't know what I'm going to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then right at this time, I met Randall Flynn, who's the director at Deum. He was on here. I just listened to his podcast. It was so inspiring. Loved listening to him.
So cool to hear his story too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, really. And I did a work because he choreographed at PBA. And I kind of told him like, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I'm thinking about leaving because we were talking about life. And he invited me to like the Deum Spring Intensive. And I went to that and I was like mind blown because I was like, I didn't even really know that like there were Christian dancers out there.
Mm-hmm.
Especially at like that magnitude, people that were that skilled, you know, I was like, this is amazing. And he introduced me to Cynthia Newlin, who was at the time the chair of Belhaven University. Sorry, all these little trails, but it'll make sense in a second, I promise.
It's all good. It's really cool, all the connections for sure. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so Randy introduced me to Cynthia. I just called her on the phone and she was like, yeah, come down and audition. And so I was like, all right. And of course, this is Belhaven University, which was the place that I was like, I'm not going there because it's in Jackson, Mississippi.
Love how this works, right?
Yeah. And long story short, ended up going to Belhaven. And I graduated from there in 2014 and been dancing ever since. So that was kind of my weird intro, I guess, to dance and college.
Yeah. Right. Super cool. Love that. And it's really fun because that's where our stories sort of line up and where we got to know each other and hang out. And so, and that's where you met Dara, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit with our listeners about that story?
Yeah.
That's
so
fun.
Dara, I met Dara. I remember it's actually really funny. She did not like me, to be fair, for most of my years at Belhaven because I was very loud and rightfully so. I came from a very different culture, trying to fit in. But I remember when I auditioned, she was doing a duet and it was a marriage duet, funny enough. But I hadn't really been exposed to a lot of dance at this point. I'd only been dancing for like a year and a half. And I just thought she was like beautiful, not just like as a person, but like as a dancer. I was like, wow, like this girl's amazing. So after the show, I like went up to her and I was just like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I thought you were beautiful. And she just kind of looked at me and she was like, thanks. And kind of like ran away. And I was like, all right, whatever. So we, you know, I guess like, you know, we were friends when I first got there, but we didn't really like hang around. Like we had we had friends that, you know, knew each other. So we would be in the same groups and it's a small community. So inevitably you're going to see each other, but didn't really, you know, talk much. And then we went to Korea together because Cynthia Newland got a group of students together and we went to South Korea and we danced there and we toured there for a little bit. And we were both picked to go on this trip. And at the end of the trip, she told me this after the fact. She was talking to her family and she's like, you know, it's really weird, but like Gabriel did not annoy me during the trip at all. And they were like, oh, that's so good. You know, that's great. Because I think initially we thought, oh, it might be a little weird or whatever. He can be annoying. And so we got back from Korea. And then that year, a bunch of our friends had graduated and they were upperclassmen. And so when they left, it was like, well, maybe I was like, you know, we should hang out because it's just us now. And so we started hanging out. Yeah, we started hanging out and then one thing led to the next. And we started dating for a couple months. And then I guess this kind of goes into the next part of my story. I don't know if we want to go here
yet. If you want to transition into it, that'd be great.
So it kind of goes into, we started dating for a couple months and then I got a job at Paul Taylor in the second company. And so I had to leave school a semester early. And so we decided to do long distance. And we did long distance for 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's long. 3, I mean, that's rough. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was here in Texas and I was in New York.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then eventually came full circle. I ended up in Texas and we can get to that later. And yeah, we've been married 3 years now. So
wow, congratulations. It's awesome. Thanks. So fun. It's fun watching like via social media, you know, people's stories unfold. And it's really cool to hear how it all, you know, came together. So I'd love to hear more about that transition because that's a pretty big deal to be in college and then to leave early. So what was that like, that transition?
You know, it was totally unexpected because it was like my senior year and I had no idea where I was going to dance. I was like, I just didn't know. And I thought, oh, I'll go back to New York and I'll freelance for a while because that's home. That's where my whole family was.
Yeah.
And I remember like leading into my senior year, some people were like, I was looking at companies and they said, you should look at Paul Taylor because, you have the same build, you can jump, you're really strong. And that's like, you're kind of what they look for. But I didn't know anything about Paul Taylor. Like, I mean, besides I read about him in the history books, but I never really watched the rep, never did any of his style. But they had a winter intensive and I got a scholarship to that.
That's cool.
Which actually it was thanks to Whitney, who was on your podcast as well. So she was the one that allowed me to go do that intensive.
That's awesome.
So went to this intensive and I was like kind of drawn to the physicality at first of it. And obviously it's just like, it's one of the biggest companies in the world.
Right.
And so went to the intensive and I was like, oh, this will just be a fun learning experience. And it just so happened that while I was there, one of their men in the second company had retired. So they were holding an audition that I didn't know about. And Ruth Andrian, who was the director of the company at the time, said, hey, I'd like to invite you to the audition. I just think it would be a great experience for you because she doesn't pick who gets the job. Paul does, because Paul is in the room watching.
Gotcha. Okay.
He was alive at the time. And so she said, I don't know what'll happen, but I just think it'd be a great experience for you. And I was like, okay, yeah, I would love to. It would be like my first audition out of college. So the audition was men only, and it was other men who had auditioned in the past and made it to the end, but got cut. So I was like, I'm just going to go stand in the back and I'm just going to have fun because obviously all these guys have been auditioning and trying to get in. So I went to the audition and it was a hard audition. I remember being like, was really,
like, I don't know what just happened. Yeah.
I was really thrown. I definitely like messed up. I forgot like a combination and like, it was not a good audition on my part. And there were definitely people there that were way better than me. But at the end of the audition, Paul and Ruthie kind of like gathered us around and they were like, all right, guys, unfortunately we only have one job and we'd like to offer it to this young man. And he didn't even know my name. He just pointed at me and I was like, what?
Whoa.
Like, this is crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So I still had a semester left in college and I was like, I don't know what to do. And so I talked to the whole dance department, the staff and everything. And they all agreed that they would release me early and I would do some classes online and do some stuff away. But the whole point of going to college is to get a job afterwards, right? So,
right, exactly. So that's,
so
why not?
They released me and I danced with Paul Taylor for probably like 9 months. And originally, like I said yes, because I was like, you can't say no to Paul Taylor. Like it's just too big a name and everybody knows it. So I got to say yes. And it's just a great place to start. And I had no idea if this was going to be like my whole career or what. And like I said, I had never performed any of his rep or anything. So I took the job kind of blind. All I had was the 2-week intensive. That's all I knew about it. So I was there and I definitely learned a lot. I mean, we toured so much. We would tour for like 2-3 months at a time.
Oh, wow.
And just learning, like, I had never been pushed like that physically before. And so basically I came to this point where I was kind of like, I just realized that I wasn't crazy about a lot of the Paul rep, and that style of dance was great, but it just wasn't something that I felt super passionate about. And I knew I wanted to do more contemporary work.
Yeah.
So I talked to Ruthie, the director, and I just kind of told her, like, I feel like there's so many people who would kill for my job, and I don't really love my job as much as they would,
Right. Yeah. That passion isn't there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I decided to leave. And at the time I was talking to Randy and I had already been to a bunch of Deum intensives and I love everything they do there. So I was like, can I, come dance for you? And he was like, yeah, of course. So left Paul Taylor, went to Deum, danced there for a year. And I was still like, not sure what I wanted in the dance world, honestly. Like I was like, I don't know what style of dance I really want to do. I don't even really know what I'm necessarily like good at. You're still like discovering. Yeah, still. I mean,
it's only at that point been like what 4 or 5 years
of dancing
total of dancing.
Yeah. So I was at Deum for a year, had great experiences there, and then I went from Deum back to New York, and I freelanced there for I don't know, I want to say like a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years, something like that. And I just took every job I can get. I was dancing for like 7, 8 different project companies at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
I worked at Lululemon on the side as well. I worked at a yoga studio, like the front desk. Like I was just like, I'm going to hustle while I'm young.
Right.
And eventually I was like, I really want to plant roots somewhere. And this is where Dara and I were also doing long distance at this point. And so we were at a point in our relationship where it was like, we either need to figure out how to live in the same city or we need to like just go our separate ways, you know?
Because that'd be really hard to sustain.
Yeah. It was really hard to sustain, especially with our work schedules. Like we'd be on the phone, like falling asleep, you know, it's like, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so I had heard about Bruce Wood when I was a senior in college, but I got the Taylor job before I had a chance to audition for Bruce Wood. But while I was in New York, I was like watching YouTube videos, and a piece of theirs called My Brother's Keeper was like, there was a promo for it online, and it like blew my mind. Like I was like, this is where I want to dance. You know, I was like, I love everything about what I'm seeing right now. So I just literally emailed Kimi Nikaido, who was a director at the time of Bruce Wood, and said, you don't know me at all, but I love everything you guys are doing, because I stalked them so much at that point.
Right.
And I said, I would love to come audition. And she said, yeah, well, you know, we could do a private audition. And she had vetted me as well. And we met and had lunch in New York before even inviting me to Texas and stuff like that.
That's cool.
And and I ended up going down there. I did a 3-day audition and got the job. And so it allowed Dara and I to be in the same city and get a job I really loved.
Wow. That's super cool how that came together.
Yeah.
And how long ago is that now? I know you said it earlier.
Yeah, it was a little over 4 years.
Okay.
So yeah.
Very cool. That's awesome. Did you enjoy the time freelancing, or was that like,
I did.
We've talked to some people that are like, it was stressful, but yeah.
I did enjoy it because I felt like freelancing really helped me figure out what style of dance I wanted to get into. Because like I said, I just took every job I could. So I was taking, you know, like people that were more like Gaga based, people that were more like codified modern, people that were more contemporary. And, you know, I just took a job, and sometimes if I didn't like it, I'd be like, well, at least I know I didn't like that. So then I would stay away from movement like that. And it also just gave me a lot of experience of working with different choreographers, because every couple of months I'm like working with new choreographers and new companies. So
that's true. Having to pick up styles or pick up choreography in general. That's super cool. And how's your experience been with Bruce Wood? What's that been like?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I had a lot to learn because Bruce Wood, one, I've always been a very good partner. Like that was one thing that everyone told me. They were like, you're a great partner. And Bruce Wood does a lot of partnering, and like, it's really challenging. And
is it a lot of like contact improv type stuff too, or
not
more
so much
like choreographed?
It's definitely choreographed. Yeah, it's way more choreographed. We do ballet 4 days a week, and then 1 day a week we'll do like a Bruce class with different isms and stuff like that. But you definitely have to have like a strong ballet base, and then also a pretty strong contemporary and partnering background as well. And the journey there has been so great. Like every season I've been pushed like farther than I thought I could go, both like physically, but also like artistically. And they really know how to mold and season dancers there. And then just a lot of exciting things have happened since I've been at the company. It's just been blowing up and getting more and more popular. So
that's so cool. How many people are in the company right now?
6 guys and 6 girls.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat. It's like pretty intimate community probably as well. Like getting to know these people. And
it's very really close knit. And we have like in-house resident choreographers, and our artistic director choreographs, and that's Joy Bollinger. But then we also bring in outside choreographers, and we try to bring in upcoming, but also people that are already very established. So we just worked with Brian Arias, who, if you don't know him, he danced with like Netherlands Dance Theater and Kid Pivot. He has his own smaller company. We worked with Kate Skarpatowska from Parsons and Lar Lubavitch, and the list goes on and on.
Yeah, so great experiences, super cool opportunities. Yeah, for sure. And then, so Dara's doing Texas Ballet Theater. I need to get her on sometime too, so we can hear her story and how that's been going. But wow, so y'all are like living full-time professional dancer life for both of you. What is that like? Yeah,
it's exciting. I mean, like it works out pretty well for us because we generally leave the house around the same time. And then I think I'm back a little bit before her on most days, unless she has an early day or something. And it's more like when we come home, we're both exhausted. And so it's like learning how to like care for one another when you are both really tired.
Right.
Like, you know, how to serve one another well. So
that's cool. Yeah. So what has been one of the low points potentially during your time as a professional dancer?
Yeah. So, I mean, fortunately, I've been working consistently, like since even like I left college early, and I've been working consistently since then. So I've been very blessed in terms of like finding work and people finding me, like people that I wasn't even looking for. So in that sense, I've been very blessed. I have gone through like a lot of different injuries. I've had like partial tears in my patella tendon and my meniscus. I've had like some back, but like shoulder, like rotator cuff issues just from crazy partnering and stuff. And so that's definitely been something that has taken me off stage and out of rehearsal for periods of time, and having to go to PT and having to, you know, do different exercises, take different medication to get back on my feet. And it's always hard during that time because, I mean, if you're a dancer listening to this, you know that like if you're off for 1 week, you're like, oh, I've lost everything. Right. Like, you know, you're like, oh my gosh, like I've gained 10 pounds and I'm not flexible anymore. None of which is true. Like it's been a week, you know, you're fine. It's all in your head, you know?
Yeah. But it feels like that for sure. It's very real. Yeah.
Yeah. But it feels like that. And so I had a lot of that going on. Like I would be off for like 6 weeks and then I would have to like get back on stage and like hit the ground running hard. And I definitely made my fair share of mistakes. I mean, even like my senior year, I injured my left knee and I was told to like stay off of it for a certain period of time. But I was like, no, I have to do this show. It was like a senior showcase, like something like looking back, I'm like, not important, right? Like it's a senior showcase it wasn't even my senior showcase. It was somebody else's. Yeah. So I was like, that performance was not worth further injury, but I decided to go on and I performed with a bad knee and everything. And then that injury came back later. And so I've made decisions like that where now I'm definitely way more careful in terms of just taking care of my body. And when something's hurting, knowing if it's good pain or bad pain or just the severity of it.
That's super important. Yeah. And that's hard to know sometimes. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. Especially like, I mean, knees in general, if you've ever had a knee injury, it's a very tricky joint. Like sometimes you could feel totally fine, but there could be something very wrong with your knee and you won't know it until you all of a sudden feel that pain.
Right. Right. Yeah. Have you ever had to have surgery or has it always been just like PT
Thank God,
and stuff?
Yeah. Thank God I've been able to, cause I've had a lot of partial tears, but because I have really strong legs, they said that was supporting, the muscle was basically supporting the joint. And so they would basically be like, don't push it anymore because you'll fully tear it. But if you take like 6 weeks off, 8 weeks off, whatever, then like it will heal. And then I also, cool. I mean, I got steroid shots and which aren't always, I do not always recommend that, by the way, but if you need it in a pinch, it's one thing, but definitely don't rely on that.
Yeah, that's really good. Do you have any like tips for people just taking care of your body in general, especially when you're in that super high demanding lifestyle?
There's definitely a lot, especially now, like for our generation, there's a lot of nutritional advice and just like healthy eating and things like that. You can look up Cynthia Newland. She has a ton of information on that. And besides just like eating healthy and because you are what you eat, essentially, like eating healthy and promoting like a good, healthy inner self. Cross training, I would say, is a huge thing now. It's like you, especially if you're in a contemporary company where you're working with a variety of choreographers, you need to be strong in so many different ways. And so whether it's like doing yoga or soul cycle, you know, or like going to the gym on your own or running or whatever it is, like I think cross training is really important.
Yeah.
So those would be 2 tips. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So those of y'all dancers out there listening, right?
Yeah.
Take the advice. Yeah. No, that's super good. Are you enjoying the podcast? You can become a monthly supporter by joining our Patreon community. As a supporter of the podcast, you get access to extra content that is only available for patrons. Some of the content that you'll see as a patron are things like behind the scenes, looking at what goes into creating a podcast, and bonus content from the conversations with guests on the show. You can learn more on our website. Another way that you can support the show is by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. Now back to my conversation with Gabriel Speiller. I know you kind of touched on this earlier when we were talking about, you know, you becoming a believer your senior year of high school.
Mhm.
How has your faith influenced your journey as a dancer?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally influenced my journey, I think, especially like I said at the beginning when I was a new Christian, I Googled Christian dance colleges because I was already trying to combine the two.
Right.
Not even knowing if it was possible because so my father is Jewish and my mother was Catholic, and they both converted to Christianity later on. So there
Okay.
was a church that I did attend church growing up, even though I wasn't always super invested. It was more like I made really good friends, so I would keep coming back. But
Mm-hmm.
even at the church, I would see people with flags and like dancing a little bit, and it was more like it wasn't trained dancing, but they were like worshiping, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think because I saw that, I always kind of wondered, like, you know, is there more in that area? Maybe not like I wasn't intentionally seeking it out, but I think it was like there in the back of my mind, like, oh, that would be
Mm-hmm.
cool if there was something more there. And so when I found a Christian dance college, I just went. I chose to go there, and I didn't really. It was a God thing that I got in the first place because I had no dance experience and I had terrible
Mm-hmm.
grades, you know. So going
Yeah,
there
he had a
and
plan for you there for sure.
yeah. And then meeting certain like father figures, spiritual father figures along the way, like Randall Flynn, Steve Rooks, Bill Wade. You know, I've been very fortunate in that I've been exposed and have met like most major Christian dance influences in the United States, and
Mm-hmm.
some in Europe even. And I was able to, every time I would go to, whether it's like a summer intensive where these guys were teaching, just constantly trying to like feed myself and figure out like, okay, like what is God going to have for me? Like, where am I going to go?
Right. And kind of just glean from like the mentorship as well,
Yes.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just look up to them because you're like, wow, these guys are like, you know, they're twice my age and they're doing it. So like, I mean, like I want to be that in like 30 years, you know?
Right. Right.
Yeah. Definitely seeking advice from them and always just kind of like, you know, it's been hard. I have not always like, I feel like it's really easy to put God on the back burner when you're at the beginning of your career, especially
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't know if I wanted to be in a faith-based environment or a secular dance environment. Like I constantly was torn between the two. Like I was like, okay, I'm going to like go into the secular world and just be a Christian there and see what happens. And then I would be like, no, I really want to go into the faith-based world and I want to do that. And I kept bouncing back and forth. And so a lot of the times, like, yeah, I don't know if I always like was seeking God in every decision, but God had my back and he, by the grace of God, he like protected me in all these decisions I was making in terms of like where to go and
Mm-hmm.
where to dance.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
That's cool. Yeah. Love to hear more on the idea of like mentors
mhm.
and also I don't know, just your thoughts on mentorship or
Yeah,
maybe how you've seen that influence your life. And then for other people out there,
mhm.
what tips you might have for mentoring others as well.
Sure.
Have you had a chance to kind of be in that role as well to mentor people coming up?
A little bit more recently, and I don't know if it's just because I'm, you know, getting to the other side now of my
Right.
career, but in terms of mentors, like how they shaped me in my life, I'm a very I'm super extroverted, but I can make a lot of rash decisions. I make decisions very quickly. I'm a doer. I always feel like I need to be doing
Mm-hmm.
something, and these men in my life that were mentoring me really showed me how to slow down and listen, how to even like be quiet and maybe and like meditate for a while. I would like before I show up to work at Bruce Wood, I'd park my car and I just put my timer on for 5 minutes and I just sit in silence for 5 minutes just so I
That's
can
good.
focus and
Right.
see like if there are thoughts that keep popping into my head because it's really hard to like think about nothing, right? Like almost
Mm-hmm.
impossible for me at least.
For me too. I do. I
Yeah.
know it's always really hard. I'm like, and then you kind of have to like, okay, that thought's
Yeah.
for tomorrow or that's yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But all these thoughts that are coming into my head, sometimes I'm like, well, maybe there's a reason they keep popping into my head. And then I present that to God and say, okay, these are my thoughts. What should I do with them? Do they mean anything? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And these mentors encouraged me to slow down, to listen more, and just, you know, it's that message that you hear all the time growing up where they're like, you know, God's plan is like bigger and better than anything you can imagine. But it's so true, but it's so hard to apply that, I think, for young
Yeah. Yeah.
dancers. Yeah. And it's hard to, yeah, I have to remind myself now all the time that like I can't control everything and I can't, you know, no matter how good I want to be or how successful I think I need to be in my field, I have to trust that like God is in control and I have to trust that, you know, he has a path laid out and that if I stay in tuned, and if I slow down and I listen, that hopefully I will see those doors that he's opening for me.
Wow. Yeah. Super good.
But yeah, and then now in terms of mentoring, I haven't done a ton of it. I've been put in many positions of leadership, which mentorship kind of comes with that. I think when you're, or it doesn't have to, but I think if you're a good leader,
Like
you
it
will.
should. Yeah.
It should. Yeah. And so I have had opportunities like Zion Dance Project. I've worked with them almost every year since they started. And last summer I was their rehearsal director. And so I was in charge of like these 80 dancers and for like, 3 weeks trying to put together like 12 pieces. It was mayhem.
Wow. Yeah.
But God really spoke to me through Vincent Hardy and Abigail and Zion Dance Project and kind of called me out on like, you're not living up to this leadership potential that I have for you. And so I decided to like really start to practice, like, what does it mean to speak into other people? And what does it mean to, when God is telling me that there's something that I need to say or do for someone, like, what does it look like to act upon that? Because it's terrifying.
Right. Yeah.
And so I've had those opportunities. And then whenever I teach somewhere or if I choreograph somewhere, I am really trying to seek out God before I even go into the space and be like, I know I'm broken. I know that like, I'm not a very smart guy. I don't have a ton of wisdom to offer, but God, if whatever you tell me, or please direct me and just show me what you want me to do. So
that's really great. Like just, being surrendered. And that's such a good word to just slow down and like listen and take time to listen. I'm not super great about slowing down either. I tend to just keep going. So totally get that. Yeah, I love it. So right now, what is kind of your current passion? What are you looking forward?
I feel like I'm still in my prime dancing. So about to turn 30. I feel like I am still growing as a dancer. Like, I don't feel like I'm like, oh, I've gotten as good as I can get technically. And so now I'm just working on the artistry, but I think I'm getting to that sweet spot where your artistry and your physicality kind of match. And so I want to grow there more, but I'm also trying to pursue more teaching and choreography. I haven't like created my own website or anything like that, but I have done my fair share of teaching in the DFW area and just through my past experiences at master classes and things like that. And now I've been choreographing for some different companies. I just choreographed on a Deum. I choreographed on Zion Dance Project, Awakening Dance Movement in New York, a bunch of performing arts high schools. So I've been getting sought out by different people randomly. And it's been really great to kind of pursue that and see, okay, how can I combine, like, it's really hard. I don't want to go into the space and just try to create something really cool because I have a lot of experience with amazing artists that have influenced me, but I want to be able to let God influence the work. And I think that's like a whole separate skill.
It seems pretty challenging not to just want to do something cool.
Yes,
because you want everyone to like it. You want to be like, this is going to be amazing and the best thing. But it can be probably easy to feel overwhelmed when that's the focus,
Yeah.
Or feel inadequate, at least.
Yes.
That's been my experience for sure.
Yeah.
If I get in that headspace.
It's always, for me at least, and I think for a lot of choreographers, even ones that are more accomplished, it's still scary. Like, because you're being very vulnerable. You're like, I'm showing you more of who I am, and I'm presenting something to you. And sometimes you can show something, and if you see people looking at you like, what is he teaching us? You immediately can feel like, I want to draw back in. Or you can just go, you know what, I'm going to keep pushing ahead and just trust that God will make something beautiful out of this work.
Right.
And so, that's kind of where I'm at. I've also been looking into getting my MFA because I do want to keep pursuing mentoring others. And I feel like what better way than to work with a group of students for 4 years and be able to speak into their life during a time when they're trying to figure out what to do with the rest of theirs,
Yeah.
So
that's so true. So good. Yeah. So kind of touching back on choreography a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you find is your inspiration most of the time? Or do you have, is it different?
Normally it's the music, I would say. Normally, I will hear something that I can't get out of my head, and I can see designs, almost like a paintbrush, and I'll see different colors and things like that. and it's all about flow for me. So I really love it when movement is super continuous and grounded. I love circles.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's all I have to start is the music and then these different images that are coming into my head. But then usually I try not to get too deep unless I know there's something very specific that I want to choreograph about, like a theme or something.
Mm-hmm.
I normally will show up with the music that I know I want. And maybe when I'm listening, I'll be like, oh, that's a duet. I don't know what, but there'll be a duet over there. And this is definitely a quartet. Like this is definitely unison. This is a solo. There's lighting there's going to be a lighting change here, but I don't even know what's on stage yet.
Right.
And like that will go through my head. And then when I show up into this space, I really try to like look at because sometimes you don't know who you're going to work with. You could have great ideas, but if you go into a studio and you're like, wow, like, okay, I have no guys and I thought I was going to have a guy. So now I'm going to do a female duet. I don't have to get rid of the idea, but you have to make it work.
Kind of rework
still.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, rework it. And then I try to use the dancers' ability, like their natural abilities, like the way that they move, or I'll notice who the leader of the group is. I'll notice, who maybe is like got an amazing stage presence, even if they're not super technically strong, and how can I utilize that? So
yeah, capitalize on those different things. And
yeah.
So do you have any, that makes me curious, do you have any like visual art background?
I don't. I actually can't draw at all. I'm terrible.
That's cool though. Well, I was just thinking because you're talking about like the lines or the different shapes and like visually seeing that. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And it's fun. I've had a few different people that are choreographers that have been on here, actually multiple, mainly because I know mostly dancers. I'm starting to branch out, get some musicians and visual artists. But it's interesting hearing different people's take on choreography and their process and everything,
Definitely. And I'm still finding my voice. Like I'm still like, I don't feel like I have like a signature on my choreography yet. Like I'm still very much so open to letting that develop however God wants it to.
Mm-hmm. What has that journey been like kind of as it's developing? I know you're in the midst of it, so it's kind of hard to speak to it maybe, but
I definitely stopped relying on me trying so hard to be like creating something new. Because it's really hard. Like everything has been done in dance, essentially, almost, right?
Nothing new under the sun, as they say.
Yeah. But I started I thought, oh man, if I want God to be involved in my work, I should probably not pull from like certain artists or whatever. But I'm learning more and more that like everything God has put in my life, like every choreographer that I have worked with, every job I've had is like in my arsenal for me to use in my choreography now. And I should use their influences. And like Bruce Wood has been a huge influence on my choreography that I didn't think it would be. But like, even though Bruce Wood, he's passed away, but his choreography, I think, is very spiritual, even though he's not a Christian, but he was a very spiritual man.
Yeah.
And I just see the human side of it. I see the artistic side of it. And I'm like, wow, I would love to learn how to marry that in my faith as a choreographer. Like, how do I take this human aspect and I take this artistic aspect? And so I make people see humans on stage, but at the same time, while they can relate to them as a human, at the same time, they're doing these things that are like otherworldly,
Yeah.
So
that's true. Yeah. I think there's something special about that connection when people relate. And there's like, I know I've experienced it, when I'm watching dance and you just, or even with music and stuff, but it just like somehow touches you super deep and you don't even know why sometimes. And you're like, what's that? But yeah, super beautiful. And it's going to be fun to watch your journey as you continue to develop that voice. And I'm excited to see what comes out. And it was fun. I saw that you posted on social media the video of you like in a living room or something, on carpet. That was so good. That was super fun. So were you just like kind of messing around, playing around with ideas?
Yeah, I that was during COVID and I was really bored. I was at my in-laws' house and Bruce Wood was asking us to like just be creative during our time off. And my friend who's in my small group here in Fort Worth, he writes poetry. And so I said, hey, can you voice record yourself reading one of your poems and send it to me? I'd love to just choreograph to it. And so he did that. And I just went down to the basement and did it.
So cool. What did you create, like actually choreograph it, or was it more improv?
No, I choreographed it.
Okay,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah. It definitely fit really well with the poetry. And I was like, this is so neat. I love it. It's going to be fun seeing the projects that continue to come.
Thanks.
And even in this time that's so weird, it's been neat seeing people. I think limits can enhance choreography, Yeah. And so
make you think differently for sure.
Yes. Think outside of the box and everything. So thanks for sharing your creative voice throughout COVID and everything.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So as we're kind of starting to wrap up a little bit, what is one thing, if, just imagine we're talking to these artists that are listening right now, like what is one thing that you'd have to share with them, or word of encouragement or advice?
I would say slow down and listen. I said it earlier, but I think we can have so much fear and anxiety on like what we should be doing next, or what we're currently doing, if we should still be doing it, what job to take, am I a good enough dancer, all these different questions that come into our minds as artists. And I would just say that like, it's super biblical to slow down and to listen. And it's just something that's really hard to do, especially as physical beings. We just feel like we have to do it. We need control over every situation. And so I would say that when you're slowing down and listen, to practice that on your own, like whether that's in the morning in a devotional, whether that's parking your car before you go to work and just sitting in silence for 5 minutes, but also slowing down and listening to others. Like find that mentor in your life, find those people that you trust and stop talking and just listen, and then see what you can apply to your own life. I just know that for myself as an extrovert and as someone who is very confident, I can go ahead and I will just make decisions. And a lot of times I look back and I'm like, shouldn't have made that decision. And had I slowed down and had I listened to somebody else, I would have been better for it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's so
slow
good.
down and listen.
Yes, slow down and listen. Thank you for that. I love it. What is one thing right now that is like one of your favorite things currently?
Ooh, well, on the lighter side, we just adopted a new dog. We rescued Polly. She's a boxer and she's just so cute. And so it's been really great having her, especially during COVID, having a little fuzzy snuggle buddy. So been having a lot of fun with her, but I'm also really enjoying being with family right now. So I've been with my in-laws twice already. I'm going to see my family next week. And as an artist, like, we love our jobs, but you have to sacrifice a lot of family time. You are on the road touring or you are in rehearsal. You don't have normal breaks like other professions. You also don't make the same amount of money as other professions. So traveling can be a serious expense. And so I've really enjoyed having the opportunity to spend time with family and talk with friends and Zoom with people, that I haven't spoken to in a while. So
yeah, that's super, super fun. It's been nice to travel and we've traveled a little bit just like within the Houston area, I guess, basically. But are y'all actually going up to New York too?
Yeah, well, we're going to my parents just moved to Connecticut, actually.
Oh, okay.
They just moved to New Haven, Connecticut. So I'm going to go up there and
nice.
Yeah, I'm just going to hang out there for
Y'all going to drive? Or are you going to fly?
No way. We're flying.
Yeah, that'd be a long drive. Whew.
Yeah, we thought about it, but we already drove to Illinois and Michigan. So we're like, we're not driving anymore.
Right. Yeah. Just mask up and yeah, exactly. Wash your hands. It'll be good.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Lots of sanitizer.
Yes. Lots of hand sanitizer. I know. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of like pieces coming out about, I don't know, all these different things, masks and sanitizer and all that. So.
Yeah.
Y'all have any idea of when you're getting back to work?
We're supposed to start back August 10th, and that's actually Texas Ballet Theater and Brucewood.
Okay.
But with numbers in Texas, who knows if that will stay, and also who knows what normal will be. Like maybe we start back, but it's in a different capacity. So yeah, August 10th is supposed to be our start back date.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So yeah, well, it's all a day at a time. And I think what you were saying about like slowing down and listening and it is so hard because we want to control it. And it's hard to just, I think right now we're all realizing we're not in control and that we don't really have it. We just have to wait, one day at a time and trust and one foot in front of the other. So I'm definitely in that same boat trying to figure it out, out what's next. For sure. Well, how can people get in touch with you if they want to kind of stay connected or also to learn more about what y'all are doing with Brucewood Dance Project? Yeah.
So you can find me on Instagram. It's just Gabriel Speiller is my handle. Facebook, Gabriel Speiller. Last name is Speiller.
Awesome.
You can also find me on Brucewood's website. So just brucewooddance.org. And if you're ever in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and you're looking to take a free class or something, feel free to message me.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Super cool. Well, thank you so much, Gabe. It's super fun getting to catch up with you. I know it's been it's been a number of years. So it's nice to get to actually hear your voice and get to see what you're up to. And I can't wait to see where the journey takes you guys and continuing
so
to
much.
grow. Yeah. Super
it's
fun.
been so great. So great being on here, and props to you for getting this together during a time. I just want to say, like, I've been listening to your podcasts, and
thank you.
It's just, it's interesting because even though like not everyone on your podcast is like a mentor to me, like I'm trying to treat it that way, like listening to their advice. What can I apply to my own life? You know, what can I relate to? So props to you for giving us this opportunity.
Yeah, totally. It's been really super fun to do. And like a lot of, like you just said, like I'm taking it in as well. And it's been really neat to get that wisdom and advice from everyone. And then it's kind of like you feel like you know the people, I feel like, when you're listening to a podcast. And so it's really neat to build those sort of relationships as well, and get to peek behind the curtain a little bit for people's lives and journeys. And so thanks for sharing yours with everybody. I know it's gonna speak for sure, especially people that are in that same kind of like season, you know. So
and we're all there at some point. So
exactly. Thanks, Gabe. Wasn't that so good? I loved Gabriel's encouragement to slow down and listen to God's voice. You can find links from the show and the full show notes on our website. Don't forget to check out creativeimpactpodcast.com/thankful and let us know why you are grateful for the arts. We would love to have you join the conversation. Next week, I have the honor of introducing you to Jaleesa McCreary. Jaleesa is a worship leader at the Austin Stone Community Church in Austin, Texas. In addition to leading worship every week, Jaleesa spends much of her time investing in the development of female worship leaders and teaching worship ministry philosophy. You won't want to miss her incredible story. Thank you so much for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. Share the show with a friend, and I'll see you next week for my conversation with Jaleesa McCreary.